Jurak Classic Whole Body Tonic is a dietary supplement, not a drug. Therefore, it is useful to affect the structure and/or function of your body in various ways, but it is not intended to and will not cure, mitigate, treat, or prevent any disease. Individual testimonials may not be everyone's experience and do not constitute scientific evidence. Jurak Corporation does not make any drug or treatment claims for its product.
Well, hello, everyone, and once again, another one of these really great Carl Jurak saga episodes. Folks, I was thinking there is something to do with four. My dad was born in 1904. He started his company, really got off the ground in 1944, although he started in 1943. It really came together in 1944. That was his original company that he called Matol Research. We were living in Quebec City. Because I think last week I told you about that séjour that he and my mother had out west in Saskatchewan. Then they moved to Winnipeg thinking that maybe that would be a little bit more suitable, that my mother could figure that it's okay, she'll make do. Well, I guess they stayed there long enough. My sister was born there in 1927, but by 1932, she had it up to the eyeballs, and so they went back to Quebec City to wait for the boat to go back to Europe. Well, you know what was happening in the 30s in Europe. It was really in a disaster shape, and my dad really didn't want to go, but to please my mother, he said, we'll go. So they're waiting in Quebec, and she falls in love with Quebec, and all of a sudden they're living there in the heart of old Quebec. And my dad, of course, is still working on his formula and working on many other things that he always thought would be great for people. One of the things he thought was that, people don't eat mushrooms in Canada. Maybe we could grow mushrooms and get people to start understanding that they're good for you. So he had a friend who had a brewery there in Quebec City, Boswell Brewery. His friend let him go down in the caverns below, three floors down in the cellars where it was nice and damp and dark, to grow mushrooms. So he used to bring these mushrooms home, and he mushrooms grow and they don't stop. So he was bringing home, his car every day was loaded with mushrooms. They had no place. They were piled in the living room. They were piled in everywhere. They were piled on the doorstep. They were piled on the porch. My mother was making mushroom soup, fried mushrooms, mushroom salad, pickled mushrooms. Oh, golly, did he ever do things, this dad of mine, let me tell you. So 1984, we started this other company called Matol, which we used the name after my father's original company's name, sort of as a namesake, and it was there, and I said, let's use it. And we started planning how we're going to market this product. And neither my partner or myself really had a clue what network marketing was all about. And my dad asked us at the time, he was 79 when we started thinking about this in 1983. And I said 1984 because we actually started the company in the fall of 1984. So there was another 4 there. And so my dad is walking around thinking, oh, this is it. I've had it. I think I'll go on to the next world, wherever it is. I might as well die. I said, Dad, instead of dying, why don't you come and help us? He said, what are you doing? I said, well, we're going to market the preparation. He said, you guys crazy. We said, maybe, but we're going to give it a shot. He said, how do you plan to do that? I said, well, something like you did with distributors, but there's a new twist to it. It's called MLM. And there's commissions, and you can get excitement and so on. He said, Anthony. I said, Dad, are you going to help us or not? Yeah, okay. He said, I'll help you. What do you want me to do? I said, well, I'm not sure. He said, well, what are you going to do? I said, well, I'm not sure. Well, the fact of the matter is, folks, that we knew nothing about that business, like nothing. Did not know what a compensation plan was, did not know anything. All we knew is we had a product that worked. So we went to meetings of other companies, Shackley and Amway, and there was this new company that had been just around for a couple of years called Herbalife. And so we went to different meetings, and we listened, and we still couldn't figure out the compensation plan. Everyone seemed more complex than the next. So we decided this is the way we should do this. So I decided I'm going to make 300 bottles of the product with the label, and we're going to start our company. We will have a meeting. Seems that's what other people were doing, having meetings. We went to some. There's all kinds of people, excitement, people enrolling and buying products. We said, hey, this seems to be the way. So who do you call? Well, my partner ended up doing the calling, called 123 people that he knew and told them about our tremendous opportunity and what we're doing. And they all, some laughed, some cried, some said, oh, we'll be there. Anyway, 4 people turned up. My dad said, what do you want me to do? I said, I don't know, but maybe stand up and tell your story. Where did this come from? How did you develop it? The trials and tribulations. So here it was in the fall of 1984, and we had our first meeting with 4 people, and he told his story. And he told the story about starting to work on it 1922 and so on, but he never told the story about him marketing it, commercializing it in the 1940s and 50s. And he tells the story, and I keep waiting for the next shoe to drop to that part of the story, and he winds up his story, and he basically says, well, I gave a lot of it away, and so here we are today, and the boys are going to do their best to get it into people's hands. And sort of that was the end of the story, and I still was taken aback. I didn't understand, and after the meeting, I said, why didn't you talk about the 40s and 50s? And well, he said, Bob, that was my partner's name, Bob asked me not to bring it up. It's just too complicated. And I said, what's complicated about it? But the cat was out of the bag, so to speak. He didn't mention it, and so it was never mentioned. And I never knew why it was never mentioned. I never knew why Bob went to him and told him, don't bring it up. It's of no importance. To me, it's all important. And that's why I'm on the phone call tonight, folks, because it is all important that my dad actually started to commercialize this in 1944, because if he had not, we would have not had it in 1984. Remember that. We would not be on the phone tonight. There would be no JC Tonic. There would be no Matol. There'd be no KM. There would not have been anything if he did not decide to commercialize it in 1943. That's the key. So 1944, when he got rolling, there's another 4, but you know what? This is like the cat with 9 lives. At any time, it could have stopped. And if he had not have made the decision in 1943 to do just that, it would have stopped. He would have probably continued to make some like I did in the 60s for family and friends, or maybe not even that. Who's to know? No one knows. So how is it possible that all these things came together to keep it going? To keep it going until 1984, when we could put it on the market and touch the lives of tens of thousands of people. There is something going on, folks, more than meets the eye. I still don't know what it is. All I know is I'm here, I'm doing it, and this product flat out works. It still does exactly what it did in 1943. As a matter of fact, there's a couple of testimonials on our website on the landing page that were written to my dad at that period in the 40s and 50s. He had a handful of them. We still have them on that original paper. I probably should put the paper in some kind of protection so to keep it, because those are original letters that people wrote in about how they feel after they started drinking his preparation. And that's much like what we have today. We have people writing in, phoning in. Of course, phoning and emailing is a lot easier. That's why we have the phones like these calls today, so that we can hear from people and so people can tell us their story. We have one guest who happens to be a longtime user of my father's preparation, and as a matter of fact, she joined up way back there in the 80s. She actually met my dad, and she's on the line tonight, and I want you to give her a big round of applause because she's going to tell her story. So, Betty, front and center, you're on, my dear.
Thank you, Anthony, and good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me tonight. I live in Ontario, Canada. My story began back in 1989. I was experiencing some really personal health challenges, and my doctors could not help me. And I was so fortunate when one day I was introduced to the product called Matol. And I was very, very skeptical at first, took it to my doctor for approval, and she checked everything over and said, well, we haven't been able to help you, so why don't you give it a try? So I did, and those first 2 weeks, they were a little bit difficult, but I did realize that I was going through a detoxification process, and I was just so tired of being sick all the time. So I said, no, I'm going to stick this out. I'm going to take that first bottle. And I was so grateful that I did, because by the end of that first bottle, I hadn't felt that good in over a year, to be quite honest with you. So I was really, really excited at that point. And I said, okay, now this gentleman had told me that the product worked on animals. And at the time, I had a beautiful German Shepherd named Shannon. She was 12 years old, and she was having very severe leg problems, her hind legs. And we had gotten to the point that we had to lift her back when going up the stairs, just to get her up the stairs. So I decided to take the bottle to my vet, and he checked it over, and he said, yeah, he said, it looks good. He said, why don't you put her on it? And he also asked if he could try it. So within 4 days, I was amazed. Shannon was running up and down the stairs again and jumping on the beds. And I called the vet to tell him the good news. And then he said he too was having really great results with the product. But what he said then totally changed my life forever, because we had Shannon's daughter, Tammy, and we had lost her to a very serious heart condition. And the vet said to me, Betty, if only we knew about this product when Tammy was still alive. So right at that moment, I decided I was going to be doing this for the rest of my life and sharing the Matol with everybody I could. So I joined the company, and one of the very first things I received was a video called Building on Destiny. And that was my very first introduction to Carl Jurak. And he told his story, and my God, he was humble, and he was loving and compassionate. He was trying to impact the world. And he just touched my heart. I fell in love with him right then and there, and knew I'd made the right decision. And then the business kind of took off. Every time I would show the Building on Destiny video, everybody would buy a bottle. And because of this, within a year, I was able to leave my 9-to-5 job and receive a generous income for doing something that I loved. It was that simple. In 1990, I was invited to be in Hawaii for the company's birthday celebration. And again, it was a dream come true for me. And I knew part of it would be the fact that I could meet Carl in person. So that's what really, really excited me. And that very first evening, he was there, and I waited in line with so many other people, and I was thinking, oh my God, like, what am I going to say to him? He's just impacted my life, and so many people around the world. And when it finally came to my turn, I just stood there, and I burst into tears. And all I could say was thank you. And Carl, he gave me a great big hug and a smile, and he said, no, sweetheart, I'm the one who must thank you. So that meeting for me will be one of the most special moments of my life. And I was so fortunate enough to meet him on many other occasions as the years went by. But, because of Carl, and his formulation, it enabled me to be at home and share 2 years with my mom before she passed away. So, of course, that was, the most wonderful thing for me as well. And then 3 months after losing my mom, unfortunately, we also lost Carl on January 6th of 1993. But We did celebrate Carl's life at a beautiful memorial service given by Anthony, and he telecasted to thousands of Matol KM distributors in their homes and at hotels throughout North America. So we were all part of a very, very special family back in those days. In 1996, Anthony retired, but we all continued on his dad's mission of sharing the Matol formula. But then, unfortunately, in 2009, the company was sold, and at that point, everything changed dramatically. So for the next 7 years, I basically prayed for a miracle. I was just, so down that things had changed, and the dream seemed to be finally over. But for me, my miracle wasn't over. It was January 6th of 2016, and it was actually the anniversary of Carl's passing. I was feeling just a little sad and remembering better and happier times and so many memories of Carl. So I decided to cheer myself up and go on the internet and see if I could read any of the old special stories about Carl. Well, the first thing I noticed was the website Jurak.com. So I clicked on it, and oh my God, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. There was Anthony and Carl smiling back at me, and God, I almost fell off my chair. So I started reading, and the more I read, the more excited I became, and I kept thinking, oh my goodness, what have we got here? And really, in that short period of time, I felt 20 years younger, and I hadn't even tried the JC Tonic yet. So I had so many questions, and my mind was just in a whirlwind. So I called the phone number, Jurak Worldwide, and I got an answering machine, and I left a message. And 20 minutes later, much to my surprise and delight, Anthony called me back. And again, I almost fell off my chair. We chatted for over an hour that first time, and we just shared so many memories about his dad, and Anthony told me about Jurak Worldwide, and I was really, really impressed. So I did get my JC Tonic shortly after and tested the product, and I wasn't really quite sure what to expect because I'd been on the Matol KM since '89, and I really wondered if I was going to feel any differences. But after speaking with Anthony and now being made aware that this was the very first formula that his dad, Carl, had developed, I knew there must be a special power behind it. And sure enough, once I tried it, I found there was, and I was receiving even greater results than I was from the Matol KM. So right away I joined Jurak Worldwide as an ambassador of health, and now once again my dreams are coming true, and my second journey's just begun, and I'm so grateful. I'm helping people and animals again, and it's all because of Carl and his tonic, and Anthony with his support, and some of my old friends and my new JC Tonic friends. It's been a whirlwind for me. I mean, I'm so excited I can barely sleep at night. And maybe part of that is just because I'm feeling so good now again about what I'm doing, and just loving every minute of it. So, I would recommend for everybody who's listening to try the tonic, experience your own personal results, and keep in mind, too, that this product is wonderful for animals, and, share my story and share your own stories. So that's my story in a nutshell.
Oh, Betty, that's a big nutshell. That's just great. Oh, my, I just was sitting there listening to that. I felt all nice and warm and fuzzy. You're such a darling. And, folks, what Betty said was exactly the deal. And that's what I've been trying to make sure everyone understands over these years, why it has been so important, and there's been a guiding hand that has kept this thing alive and kept it going for people like Betty and people who we don't even know who they are yet, who are coming along, who we have to contact, who we have to make sure that they too have an experience just like Betty has and all the other tens of thousands of people. It is really something to do with a power above us, beyond us, because as I've been telling you, at any minute, at any moment, at any time in the life of my dad and then myself and so on, this all could have been torn asunder. But still, we've managed to keep it going, keep it alive, keep the fire burning, keep the flame flickering, and we only have upwards to go. And so, again, these phone calls are not just to impart some information and some warm, fuzzy stories to all of you. It's to ask you to join us on our health crusade. If you look around you, whatever country you may be in tonight, it doesn't matter. Look around you. See how many people are sick to death, dying, sick and tired. They're sick and tired of being sick and tired. It goes on and on and on, no matter what the country. Sure, America by far leads the world in poor health, but there's many countries not very far behind, and fortunately some that are quite far behind. But folks, we have, 300 million just in America that need help. And so how easy it would be for all of you to talk to 5 people tomorrow. Just 5. If you did 10, that would be something, because 2 of them would say, yes, I'd like to try that because I am miserable. The other 8 may take some convincing, and then again, they may never be convinced because we've been so hoodwinked by the way medicine is practiced. But remember that old thing about you tell 2 people who tell 2 people who tell 2 people, and before you know it, there's 8,000 people. And that has happened in our business. That has happened because there is a remuneration that goes along with this. Betty is doing this, as you can see, from her heart and from her desire to help. But she is able also to make a living. Did you hear what she said about the Matol when she started? In less than 2 years, she quit her 9 to 5. So it is doable, and it's doable by just opening your mouth and telling people, because you do people a service, that's paying it forward, and you practice the mission, and if you do that, the commission follows. So that is how you all can be doing it, at least enough commission for you to drink free. That's the first thing. And then the sky is the limit. So I wanted these stories to really emphasize to all of you how precarious it's been, how that at any given moment, none of us would be here talking about this today. And yet, from 1904 till now, since my dad was born, and since 1922, he started thinking about it. And since 1943, he started actually offering it commercially. And in the years before, giving it away to tons of people. And the trials and tribulations, and the ones that I went through to keep it alive. Because in the early 60s, that was going to be the end of it unless I made that decision. And I made the decision against anybody's better judgment and against the advice of my father. I said, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep this formula. And one day, I used to tell him, one day. And here that day came in 1984. And folks, it's been nonstop ever since. So please, join us. Join Betty. You need help, call 800-JC-TONIC. I will talk to you about product. That is what I do anytime. You want to talk about it, you have a friend that wants to talk about it, a friend's friend, tell them to call 1-800-JC-TONIC. Ask for Anthony, and I will get back as quickly as I can, hopefully within 24 hours. In the case of Betty, it was a special. It was 20 minutes. Hey, Betty, thanks so much for being on the call. And
thank you.
Everybody, good night, and we'll see you next Sunday. Thank you very much for joining us, and don't forget, pay it forward. Bye-bye for now.